Hi, I'm Christine Daigle.
AP Rindfleisch.
Kevin Tumlinson, standing in, standing by.
Yeah, welcome to Writers Inc.
Woo!
Welcome back, Christine. You were gone
Yeah,
last week.
I was hooking up brains to computers last week, so
Yeah,
and
yeah. How'd that go? Are we doomed?
yeah,
Is it
no, it
all
was
over?
it my
Yeah.
my favorite comment, and I'm not gonna curse, but was one of the people I put it on, and she was operating YouTube with her brain, and she said, "This is some X-Men SHIT," and I was like,
Yeah.
"Yes, yes, it is." That was my favorite comment. So I was
That's fun.
training staff to be able to use it
I
with
I
the
learned
kiddos.
today, and you can
Yeah,
confirm this or maybe debunk it, but I learned
sure.
from one of the science YouTube channels that our brains are shrinking. Is that true?
I
Have you
have
heard
no idea.
that?
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
Fun.
evolutionary shrinkage.
I mean, I would have to. Why are they shrinking? Would be a question.
That's the question. That was the question they were asking.
Because like
So,
brain
what does
power
that
is
mean?
is not necessarily related to volume. So if you
Right.
have a smaller brain but it has more folds, it might actually be more efficient. So I don't know. Or maybe we're losing some volume for things we don't do anymore,
We
like
no longer
go
do.
outside.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Would be yeah,
We're
go
we're
outside.
losing the touch grass nerve
The
centers
touch
of our
grass.
brain.
Great.
Yeah.
I'll have
So
to
it's a
read that. That's
reminder,
interesting. Yeah.
go
Touch some
outside and touch some
grass.
grass.
Yeah. Touch some grass.
JD's out touching grass, isn't he?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if he's
He's
touching
in Disney
grass, but he's
World.
in Disney
Faux
World.
grass.
Faux
That's
grass.
where faux grass sounds like a it sounds like a type of music that Christine's husband would be
Oh
interested
yeah.
in.
Probably.
Bluegrass.
Faux
Faux
grass
grass.
music.
Faux grass
Yeah.
music. Yeah.
We should start that.
Yeah.
We should give that
Go
a
right
start. I
ahead.
think
I
I'm
like
a
it. I
faux
don't know what
grass
it's gonna
musician.
be, but I like it. What's faux grass?
Yeah, yeah. That's where I take a plastic fork, put it in between my teeth, and just twang it.
Yeah. Synth
Boing.
synthesizer banjo. I don't know.
Right. Right.
Uh,
Anyway. Oh, I guess I should
well,
ask Kevin what's in the news.
let's get to the news. Hold on, I gotta scroll. Okay. Well, first up, relentless focus on literacy undermines reading for pleasure, says report. A new study shows a major drop in kids reading for fun, and researchers say an intense focus on measuring literacy skills is actually pushing enjoyment out of reading. There's a disconnect at home, too. Many parents say reading matters, but they prioritize learning outcomes over enjoyment, and more than half don't even cite fun as a reason they need to read to their kids. The fix is surprisingly simple: make reading social and low pressure again. Reading out loud, usually using silly voices or treating books like shared experiences, because kids who are read to daily are three times more likely to read on their own.
Yeah.
They're shrinking brains.
Were you read to for fun as a kid?
I was never read to as a kid.
Aw,
No,
that's
I had to
sad.
do all my own reading.
I was read to as a kid for fun. My dad used to read Lord of the Rings to me at night, which I don't know.
Ooh.
When I was a little
Well,
peanut, or the
some
Hobbit,
of
I
us
guess.
didn't know
I
our
guess it was the
fathers,
Hobbit.
Christine.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, it was the Hobbit. And then I read the Lord of the Rings on my own. But yeah, I got read
What
to.
did you like better? Did you like The Hobbit better or Lord of the Rings better? And this is an academic question.
I don't know, because like I got the Hobbit so young. Like it was a very
Yeah,
different experience. But I enjoyed them
yeah,
all. I mean, Lord of the Rings had some very long battle scenes, which, is a thing.
yeah,
I enjoyed them. Yeah, I mean, that was really where I think my reading started. So,
yeah.
yeah. I got read
Mm.
Rudyard Kipling too. I remember that now that I'm thinking about it. Just So Stories. How the elephant got
I,
his trunk.
I don't have any memory of anyone reading to me other than teachers. And
Yeah,
but as soon as I learned how to read, I was off to the races. So
teachers are good. Did you get read to for fun, JP? Do you remember this?
I don't remember if I was, so
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say no just in case, someone hears and they're like, but you were, but I don't really remember. Um, but I do know like the past like year or so, I'm trying to bring like fun back into reading because I
Mhm.
feel
yeah,
like I was really like pushing for having to read every book that everyone recommends to me and feeling bad if I couldn't. So now I'm learning how to like DNF books and then do
Yeah.
them like I do it within like 2 days of an audiobook. I'm like, oh, I'm not vibing with this. We're done. And I move on. And it's so much better because when I find the books that I do vibe with, I'm reading them within like a day or two.
Yeah.
Whereas it used to take me like weeks to get through a book that someone would recommend to me. And sometimes I would just not read for months because I was like, I can't get through this book.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that reading for fun is super important because it trains the muscle and then
Hmm.
you can spend the time reading for other purposes. But I think the enjoyment part is the most important part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with
People
that.
people forget that, because all this comes from an oral tradition, and the way that knowledge and wisdom were passed down generationally was for someone to tell these stories and make them entertaining
Yep.
for
Yeah.
the people listening. And so that it is a big part of our learning to engage that part of our brain. Maybe that's the part that's shrinking, to leap
Yeah.
back. But if you're telling a kid a story and all it is lecture, they're not learning anything. They never will.
Or
And
if it's like,
that's
this
yeah,
academic thing you need for college, I'm going to read you Herman
yeah.
Melville's like, what's that? Oh my God, why am I blanking on Ahab? Moby Dick or something. Like,
Moby Dick.
it may not
Yeah,
be the most fun experience if you're like reading to them for like SATs or whatever, because that's going to be on there. It's probably not too fun.
yeah,
I don't know, but
yeah,
yeah, I'm with you on that, JP, because I think as a writer, we fall into this trap because I was feeling for a while like I need to read every book in my genre that's coming out so I know it's there.
Yep.
Plus
Yep.
these books that I should read in case people ask me about them, and it's not fun.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
No.
sometimes,
Yeah.
sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not fun.
Yeah. And
You
Yeah,
know,
then
I feel
two,
sorry. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and two, like just because a book isn't for you doesn't mean it's a bad book.
right.
And I think that was a big hurdle for me to try to understand was that like people can recommend bestsellers or I can see highly starred books and it will just not be for me, and
Yeah,
that's okay. And then I can really enjoy a 3 or 2 star book
yeah,
because who cares? Like I enjoyed it for a specific reason, and being able to catalog what those reasons are helps to then determine what I like as a reader and ideally how
Yeah,
that translates to me as a
yeah.
writer.
I've actually been
yeah,
having fun with that on Instagram just for my mental health is finding some bestsellers and like try to guess the bestseller from the 1 star reviews on
Hmm.
Goodreads, and some of them are just wild. And the books that they're like 1 starring and the things they say are hilarious. So that does
yeah.
kind of help my writer mental health a bit. So
All right.
anyway, we should move on.
Next up, Indie Bookstore Day 2026. A cause bookstores are surviving. Over 2,000 US stores plus 200 in Canada participated in Indie Bookstore Day 2026, with many reporting record-breaking sales that rivaled Christmas level traffic. What's driving the success is community and experience. Bookstore crawls, author events, karaoke fundraisers. I don't know why I emphasized it that way. Kids' activities and even hidden golden tickets for audiobooks are turning bookstores into social destinations, not just retail spaces. Indie stores are also collaborating instead of competing, teaming up with other shops, local businesses, and even civic groups, proving that local community driven book culture is becoming a powerful counter force to online retail.
Yeah. I saw in my community, they did a bookstore crawl. So, like all five
Yeah.
bookstores, and
Yep.
they were doing this golden ticket thing for the audiobooks, like
Yep.
win 12 audiobooks. It was very cool. Yeah.
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 Yeah, our area did the bookstore crawl a couple of years now, and then this past year they kind of broke things up, and they one of them did a crawl for a cause. So they
Mm,
had some local charity, and then they included other locations that weren't just bookstores. And then the idea was that you'd kind of go to each and you'd patron each, and then the proceeds, a percentage of it, would then go to some type of charity or cause in the area.
that's fun.
Hmm.
Yeah. I really like this. I think that like the indie bookstore market, especially in this area, seems to be doing really well. And I think that it brings like a good vibe
Hmm.
to the area. People seem really engaged. They go to a lot of the events that they host. Um, and two, like it just seems like such a really good hub for community. So I'm really glad to see that like these indie bookstores are going well.
Yeah. I saw an article that came out today that said there's a 70% increase in bookstores. Like they were on the
Yeah, I
Oh,
decline
can
and
see
wow.
it.
now they're really rising again as people are wanting to go more analog, which
Yeah.
is amazing. I love it. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would say within the past like 5 years, I've seen four four bookstores in the area that I can drive to within like 20 minutes that have popped
yeah,
up.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where I am currently, there's maybe a couple of independent bookstores, and they're okay. They're not. I feel kind of bad for them because maybe they do great in their tiny little market, but they don't offer much. There's not a lot of draw, and I've never been in any of them where there was more than maybe one other person in the store that didn't work there. But
Yeah.
I'm hoping that these things catch on and
Yeah.
you know support your local bookstores. On that note, though, like I'm shocked at the number of times I've gone into an indie bookstore and introduced myself and was told to my face that they won't
Yep.
stock independent authors.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
okay, support your local indie bookstore, but screw those authors who are out there trying to
Well,
Yeah,
get
I
I don't
think
by.
know. My
I
local
think that
bookstores have been
totally
awesome. They've stocked me
yeah.
up,
Yeah,
so
some
I
are.
can't
Yeah,
complain.
Yeah,
yeah,
I think
some
that
are.
totally depends on the store and
Yeah.
also like the relationship with the store. I know like one of ours wants sort of like a back and forth. They want you
Hmm.
to like
Yeah,
attend the events that they have, and ideally patron them before they really consider you in their like stock. But I think regardless of that, there's such like a good ability to have socials back and forth. So I don't know why bookstores, that you have that experience where bookstores don't want that because now you can post about their bookstore if you're in there and,
right.
they can post about
Exactly.
you. So like, it just seems like a silly thing to just cut
Yeah.
off the authors that are in the area.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right, final story. The small press view. After leaving a major publisher, Jim Hannes lost access to expensive industry data like Bookscan and needed a way to recreate a clear, accessible view of what's actually happening in the small press market using free public data. He created a free data dashboard that tracks how books from around 900 small and indie presses are performing, especially by pulling daily Amazon rankings for titles in the top 50,000. It also combines multiple industry signals in one place, including the independent press top 40, bestseller list, and upcoming titles from Edelweiss. Did I pronounce that? I never know
I
if I'm
never
pronouncing that right.
Edelweiss. I don't know.
Edelweiss, Edelweiss, and NetGalley, so you can see trends, comps, and what's coming next. The goal is to give authors, agents, and publishers a quote small press view of the market, helping them discover books, analyze what's working, and make smarter decisions without needing expensive tools like Bookscan. I support this whole
Yeah.
idea. I'm going to have
I
to go
think it's just
check this
pretty
out.
cool for indie authors to have that information. Like, what's the word? Is it coalesce the word? I don't know. You know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah,
All in one
yeah.
place.
Conglomerated or
Thank
collated,
you. That was the word I was looking for.
Globbed,
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 globbed together.
blobbed,
gooped together.
gooped together, jammed,
In the link,
inserted.
that was a
All right.
DS9 reference. The Great
And
Link.
in the link, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I've been watching a lot of DS9 lately, by the way. So, uh, yeah, I'm all for things like this. We've had something similar to this in the past, and it got, shall we say, corrupted. I won't go into the details, but there was
No.
someone who was tracking all this and doing an industry report, and it was very useful to have. And then
And then it
things like
wasn't.
data marketing and all that stuff started
Yeah.
happening. So I don't necessarily think any of that's wrong. I just think that you need to be upfront about what you're doing with this stuff
Mhm.
to begin with. But
Yeah.
anyway, it's always good to have data.
It's good. Date is
At
good.
least they thought so on Star Trek.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Ha
that's
ha.
it for the news.
Who's up this week, Kevin?
Well, this week we got a special one. We're talking to Dominique Raccah, and she's the founder, CEO, and publisher for Sourcebooks, which has gone from its indie roots to being one of the top five publishing houses. We're chatting about the origins of Sourcebooks and how she turned it into such a powerhouse. Here is Dominique Raccah. So first up, I think some people may not actually, surprisingly, be familiar with source books. Do you want to kind of give us a rundown of what source books is and where you guys got started?
Sure. I started Sourcebooks in my bedroom, and I've been doing it for some time, and we've grown into the fifth largest publisher in the country. We are the non-traditional um, publisher. We are the first. I mean, the reality is that we are, amongst many things, the first major publisher built in the modern era of publishing. I'm the only female CEO of one of the major top 10 publishers. Um, there's a lot that's really distinct and different because Sourcebooks was built by an entrepreneur, right? Like
Right.
so that just everything is different. Um,
Well,
we're one of the, I think it was kind of cool. I was talking to Harvard Business School, did a case study about source books, and it was the first case study in books they've done in 17 years. And the professor who did it said, you are the most deeply disruptive force in book publishing. So I don't know that I would say that about us, but I will say to you, we are very distinct from anything else that looks to you like a traditional book
and
publisher.
what do you think the formula is there? Like, what is it that makes source books distinct? Because you guys really are standing out. You're currently, well, what are you in the top five, right?
Yeah, we're top five.
Yeah, that's pretty remarkable, especially
And
considering your origins.
we're the first people to get into the top five in the modern age. So what's interesting about that is, and this is just me being interested,
No, that's
um,
fine. Yeah, go ahead.
I is that literally people believed it could not be done. Like
Hmm.
literally, that is a belief that people have that you cannot break into the top five. So that's been kind of fun. Um, the formula, the formula is I think three things, to the extent that there is one, by the way. The first I would say is mission. We are true believers. Like the most important thing I can talk to you about is that books change lives.
Yeah,
And I can talk about that all day long, and I can talk about that with every one of my authors, and they all have different missions and different visions and I love that about each and every one of them. Um, so first mission. The second is I'm an ex-mathematician. So data, it's our DNA. It's which is really different from I would say everyone else, because for for everyone else in our ecosystem, data has sort of been grafted onto the organization.
right.
For us, data has been sort of an essential part of the organizational structure, right? And
Yeah.
as a result, innovation is how we actually work. Like it's not like, oh yeah, we've got an innovation team over there. It's like every single time that we're working on something, we're like, oh, what would make that more interesting? How would we do that differently?
Yeah.
And then the third thing, which I think in some ways is the most important, is mindset. So when we and which I think you and I are going to end up talking about a fair amount, because I think mindset is actually the thing that makes entrepreneurs entrepreneurs. It's what makes
Right.
indie authors. It's what, right. And so growth mindset has been um I started on that path about 10 years ago, 12 years ago. Um and um and it's been really eye-opening for our people and for me, and it has changed completely how I think about leading in this time.
Yeah. I want to say, by the way, that you started. No one heard this because it had to get cut. But you told me you were boring, and now I'm like you just dropped like three bombs on me right away about your philosophy and how you guys got started. And the fact that you were a mathematician. What in the world prompted you to get into books if as a
So
mathematician?
I really am. Like I was Ledyard Tucker's last graduate student. So
Hmm.
I'm a like deeply geeky human being, deeply
Yeah.
geeky. So and I married a scientist who has, I don't know, 35 or 40 patents. So I mean, like
Yeah.
and my dad was a physicist. So like and my, so I'm kind of a family of geeks. Um, and I think in a way people lean into, and I suspect this is true of you as well, people lean into the thing that has the heart for them, right?
Yeah.
Like the thing that it's not about your head, it's about kind of the thing that is really speaking to your heart.
Right.
Um, and I think books really revolutionized who I became as a human being. If you think about books, we are all of us deeply isolated, right?
Yeah.
Like as human beings, we're little packages, right? And we're closed off from one another. We rarely actually connect. And if you think about books, it's one of the few times that you let somebody else's voice into your head.
Yeah.
And
In a healthy way, anyway.
in a really
There's
healthy way.
always social media.
Like social media, you know what? I actually have literally like I've gotten off. Just like
Yeah,
it's like,
I
oh
don't blame
yeah,
you.
this is not good for my head. So yeah, I found books to be extraordinarily useful
Yeah.
and revelatory, and they changed who I became as a human being, and I wanted to find a way to be part of that community,
And
which,
you
by the
talk
way, that community does not let people in very easily.
that's true. Yeah, we are guarded against strangers. We are guarded against the other, right?
Yeah,
What
exactly.
did you do to soften that barrier? How did you get past that?
You really don't. What happens is that we kept building, right? And so, there was a point at which we were like the 18th largest publisher in the country. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Then you kind of build and build and build. Today, a friend of mine who's very well known in the field said, Dom, you can't say you're the other anymore. Like you just can't say that anymore. Like,
Not if you're going to be in the top five.
yeah, right. He was like, that's just not possible to talk about that way. Um, so I think it's but their truth is, I mean, there is a truth that is amongst the most insular part of our community, we are still, Sourcebooks is very much an outsider.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think that's what's giving you such an advantage?
Yeah, I think, but being both
Yeah,
an insider and an outsider
yeah.
has some play, right? I also
I,
think being located in Chicago, it's a
yeah, yeah.
huge asset. I think it's hard to be in the New York community. I think you find that you speak to the same people over and over again, and
Right.
you have many conversations that can be very similar, and being outside of that community can be a real advantage.
Yeah. Yeah, you've mentioned being an insider and an outsider, and I think that's how a lot of writers feel. So
Yeah.
that may be why people are resonating.
Well, look, I am really deeply connected to writers. I think that's
Yeah,
probably where my personal passion lies.
me too. Me too. I've given up more of my personal time for the writing community, I think, than any other living soul.
That sounds exciting.
Yeah, yeah, it's really not. So you, I had there was a question that one of the co-hosts asked as a kind of joke, but I think it's a good question, and that is, did you guys outsell Macmillan last year? Because they sure
Yeah.
seemed ticked off.
Yeah, we were, and this year it's continuing this year.
Yeah,
We are, and you know, there is a world in which we continue. I mean, we're continuing to build.
right.
You know, I can't talk about it right now, but I'm going to tell you, we're going to announce 4 imprints in the next, amount of
Oh
time,
wow.
and 2 of them you're going to care a lot about.
Yeah,
People will notice. So 2 of them people will not notice at all, but 2 of them people will notice. And I care about all 4, by the way. So it matters. I don't pay a whole lot of attention to whether we're bigger than this one or smaller than that one.
right.
I care a lot about what are we contributing and what's the value we're adding, and can we make a difference? Like, it's that kind of stuff that
Yeah,
seems to matter to the Sourcebooks team and the Sourcebooks community.
yeah. You're starting more imprints. You guys already have several.
We have
That's
21 imprints, either 21.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we have 21 imprints and we're adding 4.
I can't even imagine looking at the list. I don't even know what the other 4 could possibly be. It's
They're
I
really
can't
cool.
wait to hear. We'll
Really
talk.
cool.
We'll talk after the show.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, one of the questions I have is, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, you guys started your approach was more about the indie author space, right? Isn't that kind of your origins, the
Yeah,
genetics of your yeah.
look, I wrote the first book.
Yeah, yeah.
It was terrible. It was just terrible. Oh my God. See, I mean, you're writing fiction.
Yeah.
I did such a horrible book. Todd has a copy of it. It's so ugly too. It's like one of the it is probably the single ugliest book maybe ever created, like in the
Wow.
history of mankind. Like, it could look like that,
So
right?
what you're saying is I got to get my hands on this book.
No, no,
So
no. It's like too much, too much. Um, but no, no, please don't link to it, Audrey. Thank you. Um,
do it.
yeah, I started actually, there was a book there was a book. See, everything in my life changed because of books.
Everything started with a book.
Everything
That's a
started
great.
with a book. So there was a book that actually outlined all the ways to make a self-published book.
Yeah.
Okay. Which today we would do as an ebook, but at that time was not an ebook.
Yeah.
It was a physical book. And I followed it. I remember following it, buying a copy and following it step by step. So paragraph, like, you buy an ISBN, you have to get
Hmm.
it from over here. You write every list. Like, I followed every single list. That's kind of what I did. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I did the same thing. I mean, I
Yeah.
think I actually downloaded Mark Coker's book from Smashwords when they were.
Smash words. I know, Mark. Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, yeah. So that's interesting. Do you think that that indie mindset is still part of the? Is that because I see the industry, the trad pub industry, shifting more towards the indie model, using a lot of our tactics, and I mean, I've been approached by people in the traditional world to kind of consult on that kind of thing. Do you think that is that still part of your DNA? Is that the edge?
Yeah. I think that,
Yeah,
look, being entrepreneurs
yeah,
is it's different, right? Like, Kevin, you've experienced it as different.
yeah,
I'm willing to bet people on the call who are going to listen to this are also going to experience it as different. Being entrepreneurial looks like asking questions, finding out about, oh, would this thing
right.
help me over here? This guy's got a new model. Should we try that? Right? And that really is different than the trad world, where the trad world has not really seen much of a shift, right? Like, they're used to their world being a very, very process based, right?
Right.
It goes like this. Our world is much more fluid. It's much
Right.
more, in some ways, interesting, I would say, much
Yeah.
more dynamic, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've always said that we're all just a bunch of entrepreneurs, throwing together books. Well, most of us wrote books. I think a big chunk of the indie author community became authors so that they had something to sell, something to produce. So,
Yep.
um, so you talked about mindset. Let's get into that because I do think that's vital. And I've had some trouble with mindset here and there throughout my career. So, when you talk about mindset, what are you talking about?
So there's a woman who's, I'm not kidding, like I'm going to reference a lot of books and they're
You
not,
got
and
it.
most of them are not mine. Okay. So
Okay.
there's a woman named Carol Dweck who did a book called
Yeah.
Mindset, in fact,
Yes.
right? And she
Big
talks
fan of
about,
that book.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, but I think it was 10 years ago, I read that book and got into growth mindset, as
hmm
she calls it. It changed, I think, everything for me. Um, Primarily because creating a culture which is learning oriented as opposed to a culture that thinks it knows the answer, those
Right.
are very distinct cultures. And when, there was a point at which we were a very small team of people, right? 10, 15 people. Today, Sourcebooks is 350 people, right?
Wow.
So
Yeah.
making sure that you create an environment in which people are thriving and learning and continuing to grow, that's, that's I think a lot of what my job looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. I yeah, and authors need that. They need people to encourage them in growth, because we tend to kind of sink in ourselves and we'll kind of pull back, and a lot of us are afraid to promote ourselves, or there's all these things we put up, all these barriers. Do you find that with your author base? Are they kind
Yeah.
of
And I think
they need that
also,
nudge?
well, I would not call it nudge. I think authors need fans.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I would say I'm the number one fan for a lot of my authors. Like so there are authors who I I think there are authors who do in fact pull in and periodically you want to just make sure that they hear how incredible what they're doing is,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how you get that, how hard it is to have that blank page in front of you, and how much we who are your readers and your fans admire the courage that it takes to write that page.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like that's kind of how I see part of what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like constantly jumping out of an airplane, uncertain whether you're wearing a parachute or a knapsack.
Right,
You know?
exactly. And it is for, I have authors, God help us, who read reviews.
Yeah.
And just okay, so I'm just gonna be the person who says, I'm not sure authors should read all of their reviews. I just be the person who says that to you.
Right.
Um, and that can be really hard for people, that
Yeah.
can be really devastating and I remember an author saying to me, I wrote this book this way and this person read it and they took it this way, and I was like, yeah, it's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true.
Those can slap though, I mean, early in my career, I had someone write a review saying they thought I was better at talking about writing than actually writing, and it was a good solid month before I could face the keyboard again. So, but then I won an award for the book that he was criticizing, so I guess it all washed out.
You know, I think, look, there not all books are going to be for every reader.
Right.
Okay. Kevin, not every book that you write will be for every reader in the universe. Okay. And and we should just work on finding the reader
That's right.
that will love your book. And my job is to help find those readers. That's the job I think we as a publishing organization have.
So on that note, then, what's the like? How are you guys approaching that? We'll just keep it top level as a philosophy first. Like, what's the philosophy that drives finding the right reader for the right book, the right author?
Look, I think that today discovery is we really understand some things about
Yeah,
how the book discovery process works for
yeah,
people.
yeah,
And we can, like, kind of like an onion, we can unpeel a bunch of things to help you find the right reader. We can say this kind of book belongs in airport stores, this kind of book does not.
yeah,
This kind of book should be at a Barnes and Noble, this kind of book probably not. This
yeah.
kind of book belongs with, the Walmart buyer who has this kind of a on this particular promotion. And then obviously for ebooks, there's an even more specific kind of process. And for online, there's
Hmm.
another even more specific kind of process. There is really a tremendous amount that we can create for our authors today. And I think we are now seeing that fandom is an international
Yeah,
opportunity. Fandom is an internet. I've taken authors to number one across around the world now, and I am so excited about that.
yeah. But by the way, all that right there is already, I think, something that differentiates you from the other four in your category. The fact that you're even considering things like this market is better for this book than these other markets, and we're going to put our energy there. I think most of the top, the rest of your ilk will say, tend to think in terms of like, how do we get this book to go number one in all these different places? I want it, on the shelves in Barnes and Noble, and I want it number one on Amazon, and I want it number one here and there. So to me, that's a big differentiator.
And Kevin, the other thing that I start with, and I start with this for every author,
Yeah.
is what does the author actually want? Because one of the things that's really, like, I've learned from many years of being a fan across a whole lot of different authors, right? Is you might hear, for example, there's an author who will sit across from me and say, you know what, Dominique, what I really want is I want to be number one New York Times. It's like, okay, great. I can create a plan that gets you there.
Yeah.
Okay. Or an author might say, you know what I really want? Like I heard this from one of my very favorite authors. Um, I want to change the way the world thinks about this and create this level of connection around the world.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, great, got it. I mean, I know exactly what my marching orders are. I know what the plan that needs to go down looks like, right?
Yeah.
So we work bespoke so first we understand this is also a very, very distinct. We understand that we work for authors,
Yeah.
okay?
Hmm.
And we also understand that what we're doing is creating what they would like to accomplish.
Right.
And that will look different depending on who the author is.
Yeah. That's a I love. By the way, I love it anytime anyone can legitimately work the word bespoke into a conversation. So congratulations on that. Uh, I mean, we're kind of coming up on time, so we probably better wrap things up. But what do you think? I mean, going forward, I know you can't reveal any specifics uh, right now until I hit stop on the record button, of course. But going forward, what's the objective? What are you guys aiming for?
Look, I want to change the world. I think the world
Yeah,
sucks and needs to be changed, right? Like I don't think it's a
right.
great world that we're living in right now. And
Yeah,
so I'm really interested in creating a world of readers. And some of the stuff that you're going to see me do, some of the imprints that we're doing are all about, expanding readership, creating readership at different levels and for different ages. Um, I think I think we can do better. I think we can do
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. I like the philosophy of changing the world through books. Believe me. And I have my own personal mission statements around that kind of thing. So that resonates with me. So I'm
Yeah,
glad
I
you
work
guys are
with
out
like a
there.
ton of people who are like-minded, right? So I'm very
Yeah.
lucky that way. I have like a really amazing role and job that way,
Yeah.
so I get to work with some extraordinary people, including someone in their category. So I'm
Yeah.
very, very lucky.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks so much for chatting with us, Dominique. I appreciate you being here. I'm sure there's a million questions I should have asked that I didn't ask, but you were far from the most boring person. So thank you for being on the
Oh, okay.
show.
So I was not the most boring person. You've
Not the
had like
most boring.
330
Yeah.
episodes. I
Yeah.
was
No,
not the most boring person you've ever had on, right?
you do
I
not get
feel
that
good.
particular prize. Well, maybe next time.
I feel good about that.
All right. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kevin.
Okay. So, this was a great conversation. Not for the least reason that she actually bought one of my books, immediately before.
Oh,
So I
that's
need to
cool.
check in and see what she thought. Haven't gotten any like, hey, we want to represent you calls or we want to publish you calls.
Not
So I
yet,
guess it didn't go great.
As Carol Dweck would say. You haven't
That's
got any
true.
calls
I got to have that
yet.
positive mindset. Yeah, that's
Mindset
right.
growth mindset.
So, if we talked about authors essentially being entrepreneurs, uh, how should that change the way authors approach writing? Like, should craft decisions be influenced by business thinking, or should those remain completely separate?
I feel like this is a JP question.
Uh, a JP question? I was
Yeah,
going to say a
JP has more
JD question.
experience.
Yeah, no,
Well,
go ahead,
yeah.
I
JP.
mean, I would argue that it depends if you want to or when you're ready to shift into the entrepreneurial mindset. You
Yeah,
probably need to consider how your products are being interpreted by the public. And a key point of doing that is making sure that you are giving people what they expect. And that's more than just like if you're an author and you're writing in a genre, it's the same but different method, right? Or it's the look at the tropes that are popular. How can you put your spin on it? And so there is like I'm not going to say it's a requirement, but it is something along the lines of one needs to make sure that you are aware of the market around you so that you can stand out, but you can also be what people are expecting of that and not just like, oh, I'm going to pick up this, horror and it turns out to be a romance and,
yeah,
that sort of thing. That's super important, especially when you shift over into the entrepreneurial side of things.
right.
Yeah.
That's what I would
Yeah.
argue.
I do think that if one of or your principal goal, if one of your goals is to make any form of living from this, and any sort of income from this at a greater than paid hobby level, then from the very start you should be thinking about things like your target market, your marketing strategy,
Yep.
like what there's overhead. As much as I like the idea of being able to publish freely with no real overhead, but there are expenses and overhead that are involved with this, and you might absorb those if it's just a hobby. But if your goal is to make money, then you need to be considering like where am I investing this stuff and what's the best investment? Because things like cover design, having a really cool looking cover is fine, but that's not actually the right approach. You want a cover that it will invoke the genre that you're in and will, look the same but different
Yeah.
in comparison to other titles. So you need somebody who's skilled at, what I call cover psychology.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's copywriting considerations. There's all these things. It doesn't matter if you're just publishing because you want to have a published book. If you want
Yeah.
your is to make income, any revenue from this, if that is your goal, then you are an entrepreneur and you should be thinking like an entrepreneur. So
Yeah.
thus
Yeah.
said Kevin.
My my cover for Mandrake Manor when it first came out, I got a local illustrator, and I really love that cover because I think that it's like a really fun interpretation of the book. But it was out for a year and it just didn't sell in the way that I thought it would. So I swapped and I got
Right.
a cover from someone who works in the genre, and it became a very different style. And like that book is basically the reason why I'm a full-time author. So like the big difference of doing a cover that actually fits the market versus something that you think could fit the market, but you're not the person that
Yeah.
knows the genre well enough as a designer who is doing that research. That was just a big, huge difference. And it's just the same book, but a different cover.
The important part is that I have the
Yeah.
original cover, and one day we'll sell it for $1 million because
Hell
there's like
yeah.
a very small print run.
Well, and see, and the thing is, like that is now, it's a special edition kind of version of it.
Yeah.
You could
Yeah.
you could still have that out there as a collector's
No,
cover.
only
You could
me.
offer that art. Only
Mhm.
Christine can have it.
Only you.
Only me.
Um,
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah.
so the idea of being both an insider and outsider came up as a strategic advantage, and I like that thinking as someone who is often an outsider. So how can writers deliberately position themselves as outsiders in a way that strengthens their voice instead of just isolating their career?
Uh, I guess it depends what you mean. Like I know JD's always trying to think outside of the box and of what he's doing,
Yeah,
that's not being done. I still think we need to do an
that's a good example.
escape room as our next publicity for a book. But yeah, I think like doing things that may be in a different way, or I think that's cool.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, like let's
I
all be
I
Mavericks, I
think
guess. Then I don't know.
yeah, JD's got the right attitude for all
Yeah.
of it. I've always thought like he looks at what everyone else is doing and he kind of runs in the opposite direction.
Mhm.
Because there's only so many like everyone always goes to the same go-tos, right? I'm gonna print up some bookmarks. I'm gonna,
Postcards. And you know, like everyone still
postcards.
on all the forums I'm on, they're like, oh, you have to sell your booksellers postcards. Your
Yeah,
booksellers do not want postcards.
they
Like
do not want your
they do not
postcards.
want them.
Yeah.
Uh, Take it from somebody who spent the early years spending lots and lots of money on postcards that just ended up round filed and thrown
Yeah.
away. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
I I think part of it is knowing your brand and
Hmm.
then leaning into that as heavy as you can. So
yeah,
like my early brand was like dark, strange, and queer. So could figure out what colors, what, that sort of thing to make me stick out in the genre that I'm writing. Now it's more of that like cozy, strange, and queer. But like
yeah,
I know how I fit mostly
yeah,
within the cozy
yeah,
fantasy universe, and I know how I can make my voice sort of stick out and what I'm doing that's slightly different than other people, um based off of like, some people will do Substack, I do Twitch and those sorts of things, so that I can try
right.
and reach a broader, different audience. I guess that would be it, is like just figuring out who you represent, who you are, what your brand is,
Hmm.
would be like a really big important thing for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, let's ask one last question here because we talked about so Dominique framed everything as she framed the publisher's role as finding the right reader, not convincing everyone to buy the
Hmm.
book. So what would you change or what would change if all writers fully embraced that idea that the book isn't for everyone?
Ooh, that is a good question. Because, yeah, you're right. There are those books that are Walmart books, and then,
Yeah,
there are those books that are more niche books that would be better in an indie store and being hand sold, or, at certain conventions.
yeah,
So I think you really have to take a look at what you're writing. Like maybe you are writing that Walmart bestseller, thriller, but maybe you're writing, I don't know, cozy sci-fi that would be better at a certain kind of shop or a convention
yeah,
to get that
yeah,
kind of organic um,
Yeah.
sales. So yeah, I really think you have to be honest with yourself on who is my ideal reader and where do I find them. because
Yeah.
your book is not for everybody. And I think
Yeah.
that's as soon as you realize that, like, whenever I'm talking about my book, I'm like, do you like, dark thrillers that are a little, disturbing and serial killer? Because if you don't, that's okay. You don't have to read this book because you won't like it, right? Like if you
Yeah.
want to read a cozy fantasy, my book is not for you.
Yeah.
They're not the same readers usually. I mean, there are always those, exceptions that read all over the place in all the genres, but a lot of
Right.
people just like to stick to their same genres, which is fine.
Yeah.
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 It was a little easier for me to recognize that my books aren't for everyone because one of the factors of my books is queer, and queer is just inherently like you're either going to like it or you're going to hate it. There's clear
Yeah.
barriers to some people who will not read that kind of stuff anyway. And I just know that exists. And that, like, having that identity thing, it's a non-negotiable. Now, when you sort of expand that into like cozy sci-fi, you're definitely not going to grab the military sci-fi, and you have to come to realize that that's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Yes, there is the crossover readers, but if you have a diehard military sci-fi fan and you're writing sci-fi military or sci-fi fantasy or whatever, that you're just not going to have that crossover, and so trying to placate to them is going to water down your book and what
Yeah.
you're trying to tell.
Yeah.
And so you should always focus on what is the story you're trying to tell, what is the topics, the tropes that you're pulling from, that you're twisting and subverting, but stop trying to placate to the other ones that are around it and really hone in on what that specific core essence is that you're writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I, you know, I guess this kind of loops back to all the things, the outsider thing, the business thing, but I have always approached my career as what I'm actually out there peddling, selling, marketing is the Kevin Tumlinson brand. Because when my favorite books were always accompanied by my favorite authors. Like if I fell in love with an author, I read everything that
Yeah.
person wrote. And I wanted readers like that. So all my entire strategy, everything I've done has been about building an audience of people who would read the phone book if my name was in it, right? So that when you take that approach, you really finding the and it's actually a little easier, I think. I mean, it's been slower growth um, in that I haven't had a mega bestseller that, caused the whole world to beat a path to my door yet. But
Yet.
what I
Carol Dweck.
have had, see the Carol Dweck, I'm kicking it in.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I have had is a lot of readers who were so enthusiastic about my stuff that they went and told their family and their friends, and
Yeah.
you know,
That's what you want, right? Those super fans
that's what I
that'll
want.
spread the
Yeah,
word.
Yeah.
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 Cool. All
And I
right.
just need those people to buy $100,000 worth of books each.
Exactly.
That's all I really
That's all.
need.
Link
Mortgage your
in
house.
bio.
That's fine.
What do we got coming up next week, Christine?
Next week, we have Chris M. Barkley. Chris is a fan writer, journalist, and activist from Cincinnati, Ohio. He has been active in sci-fi fandom for 50 years and has attended over
Wow.
200 conventions, 35 world science fiction conventions. I think it's really cool because we've never had a fan writer on before. I'm really excited to hear about this. He also writes for File 770, a column called So Glad You Didn't Ask, a column of unsolicited opinions. And he was the 2023 recipient of the Hugo Award for Best Fan Writer at the World Sci-Fi Convention in China, and nominated again in 2025 for Best Related Work. So fan writing we got coming up next week with Chris M. Barkley. It's going to be great.
Sounds like a good time.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm here for it.
If you'd like to be notified as soon as new episodes publish, make sure you go to writersincpodcast.com and sign up now. We'll see you next episode. Have a great week of writing.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Writers Inc. Access the show notes and leave a comment at writersincpodcast.com.